Hi guys, hi ladies. Yes, muted it then, I think. We're in the shack again. It's, we're going to just have a chat. Yeah, I'm still having trouble with eBay. Still having trouble with eBay, guys. I put that little radio, that little AM that had the smoke coming out of it last night. The little realistic, which I repaired, but I'm going to recap. I've not had the chance to recap it today, so we'll get back to that. Going to recap it. I put that up for sale, and eBay pulled it. You know, so I sent them another note. They rejected my appeal. I sent them, so I just fucking thought, fuck it. I just relisted it, and they sent me, and they pulled it. So I appealed again, and this time they approved my appeal. I don't know what I don't think they could organise a fucking in a brothel. You know, they couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery. Anyway, what I think we should do, all those CB guys that sell stuff on there, if it keeps happening and we're all having trouble, I think we should just boycott eBay until they finally get it into their fucking heads that 26 to 28 megahertz is legal. It's legal all over the place. It's legal all over Europe, it's legal in America. I can't think of anywhere where it's not legal. I mean, there might be somewhere, but I can't think of anywhere. All the important places, I mean, yeah, even Australia. You know, it's legal in Australia. Where's my glasses? I brought them back over here. I was watching the snooker earlier, guys. I was watching grown men walking around the table, knocking little coloured balls about with a stick. Because I like snooker. I think it's brilliant. Yeah. So basically, guys, let me just sort it out on the phone for the chat. Basically, I think we should all boycott eBay and go nowhere near it until they can get it into their heads. I think we're already in the shack. On here, yeah, we are. Oh, we should just come straight on. There you go. You know, I think we should just, I mean, the radios I've put on are not modified in any way. I could understand it. If I put on like a listing saying, this is a UK FM radio, but it's had mid-band added or something. I could understand them pulling it then, because you're not allowed to sell modified radios. No, that's a no-no. And I, to a point, agree with that. Depends on the modification. But nobody should own up to modifying them anyway, and you just put them on and sell it as it is, and just send the seller a message, telling them what's on the radio, what it can do, and I mean, this is going to keep happening, guys. I'm going to be fighting with eBay now until I've run out of CBs. I'm not putting any more on, I don't think. What I'm going to do, I've got a few to go. I'm going to put them all on in one go, and if they pull them, I'm going to fucking appeal it again, so that they have to, and then fucking keep appealing it until they relist the fucking lot of them. And I'll just leave them on there then. At the end of the day, guys, it ain't fucking fair. We are entitled to sell our radios. I could understand it if you weren't allowed to own them or sell them, but we are allowed to own them and sell them. I mean, like I said last night, and I shown you on that note that I put up, that notepad document that I put up, eBay basically say that you can't sell things that are used for spying on other people, like cameras hidden toothbrush holders and that kind of idea. And it's, but that's contradictory to eBay's policies, because if you go on eBay, guys, I'm going to do this now in front of us, right? If we go on eBay, I'm going to do this in front of us. Hang on, that's the wrong thing. I'm going to go on eBay and I'm going to type in camera glasses. Now they are covert items. Camera glasses, according to their policy, are not allowed. Anything with a hidden camera. So type in camera glasses. Camera glasses. Spectacles. Camera spectrum camera. Camera spectacle. Here we go, 4K camera glasses. They're everywhere. Spy camera glasses, look. Hidden camera glasses. Here we go, guys. Right, now you're not supposed to sell them. According to eBay, you can't sell them. Because, basically, and there's loads of them. And I bought a pair, and I'll tell you now, guys, they're fucking shit. They're crap. I bought a pair years ago. A few years back I bought a pair and they're absolutely crap. See, they record you and you're not allowed to sell them, but eBay's full of the fucking things. Right, if we could come on to you guys. Right. Let's move. Let's go to capture. Windows capture, properties, select a window to capture, window, yeah, eBay. There we go, guys. Right, now these glasses you are not allowed to buy them. You're not allowed to sell these on eBay. Yeah, and look at this. They're everywhere. You're not allowed to sell these glasses on eBay, guys. I hope eBay fucking sees this. You're not allowed to what? You're not allowed. You are not allowed to sell these glasses because it actually breaks their, but it's actually in breach of their policy, according to them. Now let's go to another one. Let's go to another one, guys. FM transmitters. There we go. Right. You're not allowed, but according to eBay's rules, you're not allowed to sell these, but they're selling them. Yeah, because they work in the broadcast band, and there are actually some that can do 5 watts. I've got one. Steve borrowed it. He's still got it. Need to get that back actually. But yeah, according to their terms and conditions, you're not allowed to. According to their policies, you can't sell these on eBay. But look, they're everywhere. Yep, they're everywhere, guys. And that's only one page of them. Yeah. CB radio. Spy. Let's put in spy microphones. Surveillance. No, we'll put in spy. Spy camera, hidden spy cameras. Here, look. Here, look. This is, you're not allowed to sell these. This goes against their terms and conditions. You're not allowed to sell these because they can be used to spy on other people. According to eBay, their terms and conditions, you can't sell these, but look, they're everywhere. Right? Spy camera, Wi-Fi, hidden cameras, microphones, spy transmitters. I've spelled it wrong. Spy transmitters, it's coming nothing for those, but there'll be some. There we go. Wireless GSM live spy remote control audio listening security surveillance device. Yes. Yes. You know, you're not allowed to sell them on eBay, but they're everywhere, look. They're absolutely everywhere. These are designed. And look at this one here, Spybug audio transmitter recorder in phone charger. You're not allowed to sell them. According to their terms and according to their policies, you're not allowed to sell them. Yep. You're not allowed to sell them, guys, on eBay. But look, they're everywhere. It's full of them. It's fucking full of them. Now let's go to CBs. CB radios. Here we go. CB radio equipment. CB radio. That'll do. Right. Oh, there's mine. They've actually let it go on now. There's mine, guys. That's my listing. Yeah, that's my listing. You know, that's the one that was smoking last night. We've repaired that. We're going to recap it though. And that's it, you see. That's my listing. And, you know, it's... which one am I on here? Oh, I'm on that one. Yeah, because you took it off the other one. There's my other listing. I mean, look at these here. I mean, I've got nothing against anybody selling any of these because you're allowed to sell them. You can go and buy them. You know, it's... And these multi-norm things, these Universal Desk Stand CB President, whatever that is, you know, multi-norm piece of shit. You know, they comply to the law. You know, I mean, these ones don't, but, well, they do sort of. You know, you're allowed to own them. The point is, you're allowed to own them. You know, and that's, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, look at all this lot. You know, you can buy all sorts. You know, look at that there. There's a lovely York 863 with the box. A Cybernet Beta 3000. I had one of those. I've had a couple of them. They're good radios. You know, and what we've looked at so far is all illegal. It's all illegal. Amstrad microphone aluminium inlay. You know, that's all right. That's all right if you know, it's worth buying that if you need it. You know, and that's my argument. You know, at the end of the day, there's a President Jackson, blackface. I've got the offer of one of those. I'm not sure I'm going to buy it yet, but I'd like to. It's having the money. I don't know whether the one I've been offered to blackface or the silverface, because I think they do a silverface. I was bidding on this lot here. 8 CB, look, there's 8 of them there. 8 CB radios, £82 it's up to. I think I went as far as 50 and stopped. Because they're not really worth it to me at any higher. There's my realistic mic, that's up for sale. Realistic microphone, don't know what model it is. But that's one of my listings. I sent someone an offer, but they haven't got back to it. But that's one of mine. You know, and At the end of the day, guys, you know, they're selling stuff that, according to their policy, they're selling stuff that you're not supposed to sell. You're not allowed to sell, like, if we bring our work, oh, I didn't save it, did I? Doesn't matter. Oh, I think we might still have it here. We've still got it. Oh, no, we haven't. I deleted it. Unless it's here. No? No? It was on that, no. No, we've not got it now. I deleted it. Anyway, I think if eBay are going to start playing that game, you can't put this up because it doesn't cover this or cover that, If they're going to start being fussy and play that game, I think we should just boycott the bastards. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think we just shouldn't bother. And, just get rid, what we need is somebody to start, some company, to start up an auction site. I bet if you put them on Amazon, I mean, I don't shop on Amazon, but I bet if you put them on Amazon, they won't get pulled. Because Amazon don't give a fuck anyway. Anyway, guys, for those of you that seen it, what did you think of me sponge cake? Me and Christine had a piece with a cup of coffee earlier. Well, she had a cup of tea, I think. But we had a piece with a brew earlier. Oh, it was absolutely lovely, guys. Honestly, it was absolutely lovely. Oh, it was nice. I've still got some there. I've saved a piece for Laura. And I think there's enough for another piece each. But I also sent my friend Alison a piece. I put it in a food bag and sent it across to her. She only lives up the road and on the other side. So I sent her a piece as well. Because she needed cheering up. So I sent her a piece of my cake. Just something nice for her. Because it's nice to do. It feels good to do something nice for someone. It's one of those. Oh, pardon me. It's one of those things. Me handheld sold today. My realistic handheld, that's going. I mean, I don't use it. What's the point? I've got radios here I can use as monitor receivers, so I don't really need that. I took the batteries out, obviously, because you're not supposed to ship them with batteries in. And besides, the batteries cost me quite a bit of money because there was 10 of them, and I had to order them from eBay again. I mean, when are them idiots going to learn? When are them idiots going to learn that, all over the Western world, CB radios are legal. You can buy them and you can sell them, you can own them, you can use them, you can do what you want with them, except modify them. You're not allowed to modify them. I know we all do. We all like them. We all like to play and learn. Of course we do. Hi Andy, just finished watching the lemon and coconut sponge cake video. You're okay? I'm fine, thanks, Julie. Yeah, I didn't put I didn't say black currant then. Gee, Andy, get it right. I didn't put the coconut in because I forgot. I forgot the coconut. Mind you, I'm pretty glad I did actually, because I sent a piece to my friend Alison up the road. She's a bit down at the moment, so I sent her a piece. She's feeling a bit low at the moment. But I'm not going to say why, it's her business, but feeling a bit low. And I thought, I phoned her up and and she says, I believe you're baking a cake today. And I said, she says, I thought you were baking a cake today. I said, well, I've already baked it. She says, am I going to get a piece? I says, of course you are. So of course you're going to get a piece, love, no worries. So anyway, I cut a piece off and, cut a slice out and put it in a food bag. And Christine took it over to her. I forgot the coconut, Julie. I absolutely forgot it. But that being said, I'm not really worried because Alison doesn't like coconut. So if I'd have had coconut in, she wouldn't have eaten it. She wouldn't have had it. She wouldn't have wanted it with coconut because she doesn't like coconut. So to be honest with you, because I sent a piece over to cheer my friend up, I'm glad I didn't put the coconut in. But yeah, that I mean, it was a bit thin on the ground. It rose pretty well in the middle, as you can see. You know, it had a nice incline towards the middle. So you know, and it's nice and moist. You know, it's dead soft and nice. It's lovely. You know, it feels like a proper cake should feel. You know, not all chemically like shit you buy in the shops. It didn't taste of chemicals. Because it had all, the only thing it had in it, which probably had some preservatives in it, was that fucking lemon, that lemon concentrate stuff. That lemon, what do they call it? You know, that fucking stuff I shook out of the bottle. Lemon extract. Had that in it. You know, but really, if I'd have made, you know, I did cut the recipe down a bit, but if I'd have made the recipe according to the actual full list of, to the full amount of ingredients, yeah, I think you did that last night. I didn't spell coconut wrong. Don't worry about it. I'm a lousy speller. I had to ask my daughter, are you ready for this? I had to ask my daughter, how do you spell sponge? How do you spell sponge? Because I think I was replying to you, Julie. I think, or was it? No, I wasn't. I was looking for a good sponge recipe. I weren't bothered about what was in it. I just wanted the actual recipe. Because it's been years since I baked. It really has. And you know, a lot of it's floated off into the ether. But you know, considering I've not baked for nearly what Laura was 16 when she left here. She was 16 when she left home, and I've not baked since then. And that was what, she's now 30. So you know, what, 14 years ago I last baked, apart from when I started again the other week and I baked those pies. But yeah, we're I've not baked for 14 years or so 14 or 15 years. So, you know, I've got to get myself back into it. But I think that was a good effort. It certainly tasted good. That was for sure. I had a piece with a cup of coffee, sorry. Yeah, 14 years, yeah. You know, that's the last time I baked. I got rid of all my baking stuff, except my electric whisker. I kept that, because it was in the bottom of the drawer. I kept my electric whisk, my mixer thing, I kept that. But yeah, I can't believe my microwave was full of water. I mean, what that was, Laura warmed her dinner up last night when she come from work. She called in and I had her dinner in the microwave. She warmed her dinner up, and really on a microwave, when you take the food out, if there's steam, you're supposed to leave the microwave open for a couple of minutes, and that way the steam evaporates. Well, it didn't, you see. It condensed. It condensed into water, and didn't leave the machine because it couldn't, obviously. So I give it a good wipe out. But that's it, guys. I mean, but I'm really am miffed off with eBay. But I'm not the only person, guys. I was on Graham Microchips' group last night. I even left a comment on there. I was on his Facebook group last night, and there's a lot of people having trouble. A lot of people. One guy bought a CB off eBay, kept it for a bit, decided he probably didn't want it, put it back on, and they pulled it. And he got in touch with him. He said, "Look, I bought it from eBay to start with. He said it came from eBay, so they relisted it. I mean, but look at all those spyglasses and microphones and transmitters. You know, that is in their policy that you can't sell. You can't sell that stuff on eBay, but it's full of it. So, yeah. Who's got that stuff listed? Is it eBay themselves got it listed? If it is, that's double standards. Because they're saying, well, we can do it, but you can't. Or is it just individuals and eBay can't be asked taking them off because that fucking many of them? They could take them off all in one go. All they have to do is shut the site down for 24 hours. You know, and then come back up again. Is the recent thing they've started doing? No, it's not, Julie. There's always been on eBay, there's always been a grey area on CB radios, and I don't understand why. I can't remember, did I get pulled once? I don't think I got pulled. But I have seen some that have been on there, and they've only been on for a matter of minutes. You have a quick look at them, they've been on for a couple of minutes and then they've gone. So they must be the ones that they pull. Because there was like 4 people looking at my little... pardon me. There was like 4 people looking at my little thing. My little... doesn't sound right, that does it? It's about 4 people looking at my little realistic. My little 427, and they pulled it. So 4 people seen it, you know, and then they probably went back and thought, where's that gone, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, guys, you know, at the end of the day, I've put it back up. I didn't really want to put it back up because I haven't finished it yet, but I just hope it doesn't sell. If it sells, then I'll just have to lickety split get on. We might do it later because it's only a matter of changing a few caps, going through it, changing a few caps. I mean, we found that resistor that burnt up. We need to replace that. I did try and have a look for the manual, but I couldn't find the schematic diagram, so I don't know what the resistor should be. I might open up. I've got another one here which I think is the same radio. I've got another one here which I think is the same radio inside. So I might open that up and have a look. If it is, I'll be able to find out whether it's that. We'll find out what value that resistor is. I mean, the resistor hasn't gone, and it might be reading the correct ohms. It's only scorched. It hasn't completely fried. But, you know, I mean, it is working with a 38 or 39 ohm or whatever it is. The radio is working with that in it, so, you know, I don't like leaving burnt components in things, charred components. So we will put a new resistor in that. We will put a new 30, or as near as damn it. I might just split the difference, put a 40 ohm in it. It won't make any. It wouldn't make that much difference. But yeah, yeah, that cake was lovely, Julie. It went down well, love. We've still got some left, like, and it was a nice yellowy lemony colour inside. It was actually a nice yellowy colour. It just looked really nice. You know, it looked really nice inside. You know, did you see the bit where I was going to wipe the knife on me shirt? You know. And I'm not going to say I just did that for you lot. I really was going to wipe the knife on my shirt. And I realised I was filming myself. I thought, better not. I mean, I would have washed it. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have wiped on my shirt and chucked it straight in the drawer. I'd have just wiped on my shirt and threw it in the sink. So I didn't get butter all over the bottom of the sink. But, so no, I ended up doing that. I ended up, it got washed. Yeah. You know. Yeah. You know, but you know, we you know we do develop now. You know, we do develop certain habits now. You know why my shirts are in such a state they're in. I wipe everything on them. I wipe everything on my shirt or my trousers. You know. You know, I could have wiped the knife in between the crack of my arse. That would have got both sides in one go, wouldn't it? You know, that would have got both sides of the blade in one go. You know, but you know, around the kitchen, guys. I mean, my cupboards need a bit of a wash. I can't reach down to them. I can't get down that low to wash them. I mean, they need it, but I can't get down to wash them. What I might do over the weekend is take a chair in there. And I can sit on the chair then and spray them with some cleaner. And I've got a mop there. I can mop them. Just mop the doors and then just. Christine's supposed to help me do it, but she never does. You know, she never does. Yeah, I'll come round. I'll help. Yeah, but you know, when the time comes, I can't come now. I've got something on. So, you know, at the end of the day, guys and girls, that's what happens. You know, you can't go through life. You know, yeah. So, I watched a bit of the snooker. Pardon me. I watched a bit of the snooker this afternoon. I quite enjoy watching snooker. I've got this thing about watching grown men walking around the table with a green cloth on it, knocking little coloured balls about with sticks. You know. Yeah, I've had me tea. We had fish cakes, chips and beans for our tea. And I put Laura's in the microwave. She finishes work, she'll call here on her way home. And she'll devour it. What she'll do, she'll eat her tea and then say, right, I'm off. I don't mind. She's my little girl and she always will be. No, even though she goes a bit daft when I say it. I said, no, I'm not little anymore and all this lot. She'll always be my little girl. Yeah. But that's it, guys. So yeah, we got getting back to the radio. Yeah, we got the radio going. We've got it under here. We got the little realistic working again last night. After it decided it wanted to smoke. There it is. That's it there. We're not going to go and change cameras, but put that there because I'll work on that later. Not going to do it now. No. But yeah, But yeah, I enjoyed that cake. I'm having another piece later. I think there's enough for another piece each. It could have been a bit thicker, but that being said, it rolls more in the middle than it did at the edges. But that's how cakes usually go, innit? I mean, when you make a cream sponge or something, you always cut the top off so that the two pieces fit together when you put the filling in. You know, you cut the top off. You cut the top off one of them, so you've got a flat surface to put the filling on. But and they're usually thin. So you know, I was pleased with the way it came out. It was nice and had a nice golden brown texture to the top. Did a nice golden brown colour. That was cooked to perfection. That, guys. Any longer than that, and it would have started to burn. That was just right, that. Because, you know, like what I do, I stick a knife in them. And if the mixture's still soft inside, you just leave them in. The other way is you can tap the top of the cake. If it sounds hollow, like a hollowy sound, then it's done. If it doesn't, then it's not done. But I prefer to stick a knife in it, just in strategic places. You know, a knife at either side at the edge, just before the edge, and one or two in the middle, just to make sure we've got everything. But that was a nice mixture. That wasn't bad. Next time I'll make double the amount, and that way it'll fill the part of the cake tin. I've actually got 4 different tins. 4 different size cake tins. I could make a wedding cake if I wanted. I'm not going to, but I could. I've got the right tins to do it. Yeah, so let's see what you're saying, Julie. There's only you in so far. Not that it bothers me, I don't mind talking to you. I think you're lovely. If you had a similar tin, it probably would be thicker, but it was very nice. Andy, my sister, used to bake lots. I mean, yeah, if I'd have had a slightly smaller tin, yeah, I know what you're saying, Julie, and you're absolutely right, love, because I think I said that on the video. I could have done with the next size down, but next time I'll just make more mixture. Now, if I'd have made the mixture according to the actual recipe, instead of cutting it down a bit, if I'd have made the mixture to the recipe, it would have filled the cake tin. It would have been enough. I had no trouble getting it out the tin though, guys, did I? I had no trouble getting it out. I mean, that's why I like buying cake tins that are non-stick. They do say grease the bottom, or put some paper, put some greaseproof paper down in them. Line them with greaseproof paper. That's all right if you're working with something like where you have to pull it out. Where you can't. Them cake tins I've got, they got they've got locks on the side. You can open them, and it widens the tin, so you can take the bottom out. You can take the bottom out, where you can take the cake out through the top. I thought, it tasted nice. Just a shame you couldn't taste it, Julie, because it did taste nice. It was, it was a nice bit of cake, really. But I think the next time I'll make the mixture as it should be made, make the right amount, and we'll have enough then to it'll probably be able to fill the pan, the cake tin. But yeah, I was quite pleased with how that turned out. I'm thinking about a lasagna, not for next week, but I've got some sauces in the cupboard, so I'm thinking about a lasagna. I mean, just because it's called Andy Bakes, it doesn't mean to say that I have to. It always has to be cakes and biscuits and pies. It can be anything that you put in the oven, or anything you put on the gas on the hob. It can be anything you want to do, really. At the end of the day, guys, it could be anything you want. Yeah. I think when it comes down to it, when you're baking in the kitchen, when you're baking it yourself, you're only limited by your own imagination. You know what I mean? You're limited by your own imagination, so there's lots of things you can do. I've still not found my biscuit cutters, by the way. I don't know where they went. They're in here somewhere, but I don't know where. Could be anywhere. But I might just have to order. They were expensive. They're only cheap. I'll just order another set. Yeah, so I'll tell you what I would like to try. I'd like to try custard creams, but I don't know what the fucking shit is they put in as the custard. I remember my mother, she couldn't cook for fuck all, my mother. I mean, if it had been left to my mother, none of us would be able to cook. Well, none of us could except me. I'm the only one out of the 4 of us that could cook. Because I learned from my dad. My dad was a great cook. I used to watch him cooking, and he had fingers like a surgeon, my dad. He was very, 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 very clever. And when he was a kid, he used to tint photographs, and he used to turn them from black and white to colour. I remember him telling me that, and he said I had all the tints and all the gear to do it with, He says, and people used to bring their photographs. He was very artistic, my dad. Hello, Mark, 1966. I hope you're all good. Yeah, have you seen the baking video yet, Mark? You've been on there and had a look. I wish we had smelly vision. Then you could have smelt it. Mind you, you'd also smell my fart. But I don't fart in the kitchen. When I'm doing the baking, I don't fart. Because I just don't think it's nice. You know, you're there making something really delicious. And all of a sudden you go... more than 2 sniffs of that fucker and you're greedy. No, that's not the place to do that, is it, guys? I don't even let silent ones out. I mean, I'm of the belief that the kitchen should be the cleanest room in the house. Some people say the bathroom should, but no, it's not. That's wrong. I mean, yeah, your bathroom should be clean, but your kitchen should be clean to the point where you can eat your dinner off the cupboards. And my cupboards are all clean. I mean, the doors need a wash, but the actual surfaces where I cook the food on and prepare everything, they're all spotless. You can eat your dinner off my cupboards. You know what I mean, guys? You really can. It's lovely and clean. Not being busy today. No, being busy today. But I'll have a look later, looking forward. No worries, my friend. Hope you and Bernie are good, by the way. When Mark comes on, you can multiply the watchers by about 10. A whole load of them gather around the telly and sit watching. Yeah. You know, but yes, it's... that light nights are back now, aren't they? What are we now? Nearly 7 o'clock, 10 to 7. Is it? Yeah, 10 to 7. And it's a broad daylight outside. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's beautiful. It was muggy this morning. It looked like it was going to fucking piss down this morning. And it might have done even, but it looked like it was going to do. But look at it now. It's gone fucking beautiful out there. I think what we might do in a bit, guys, will probably be another shack video in a bit. A recorded one. Because I want to change the capacitors in this. Because we had one that went short while we were using it yesterday. While we were testing it, we had one that went short. So how many electrolytics are in this? 3 there. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that one, 11. Yeah, 11 to do. Yeah. You've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, have I counted them right? Let's go over them again. Start at the back and work my way along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 and 19, 20, 21. I can count 20, yeah, 21. So what we'll do, we'll get into that later. I won't show you the whole lot on camera. I'll just do a little bit and then get on with it and get them all replaced. And you know, and then we can, so we can. That's the job for later. Yeah, and that was the one that was short, which was 100 microfarad at 16 volts. It isn't anymore. So there's one we don't have to do, and that's the one that went short. And it caused the radio to overheat, that resistor to overheat, and it started to smoke. So yeah, we're going to do that later. We'll get the capacitors out of the workshop because I've got all the values in there. I think I've got all the values in there that I need in one of them boxes. The box I've got in here hasn't got all the values. It's got the values, but not the voltages. Well, some of the values are not there either. But that's what we want to do. We want to get it ready so when if it does sell, at least we know it's right and it's good to go. I might change them tantalums as well. You can put electrolytics in place of those. So we might get rid of those tantalums because they're known for going. They go short just for the hell of it. Them tantalums. So we might replace those as well, and put electrolytics in. But really, what I need is the service manual, and I've had a look and not been able to find it. So I don't know what's going on. I found the schematic, but I got bounced all over the place trying to get it. I mean, I don't need the full manual. All I need is the schematic. That'll do me. The schematic and maybe the board layout. You know, that would do me. You know, if any UCB radio guys have got the schematic, got the manual, got the service manual for the realistic TRC 427, then yeah, let me have it. Email it to me. You know, be kind and email it to me. But yeah. Oh, pardon me. Oh, that's me tea repeating on me. Pardon me, guys and girls. Yeah, so the baking video went off okay. I mean, it's going to be a bit slow going, the baking channel. It will be, obviously. I mean, this channel's now got 203 subscribers last time I looked. You know, this has got 203 subscribers on it. Admittedly, I'm one of them, and I think Laura's subscribed to it. Oh, pardon me. I get everybody to subscribe, even if they don't watch it. I still get them. Why not, eh, guys? But yeah, I think it's yeah, like I say, I sent my friend a piece of cake over, cheer her up a bit. You know. Yeah. Yeah, somebody was supposed to give her a lift somewhere. I won't go too deep into it. Yeah, somebody was supposed to give her a lift somewhere, and it was important to her. And apparently the person who was supposed to give her the lift gave her the old tyre treatment. You know, the letdown. If you let her down, he gave her the old tyre treatment. Let her down. But it's not fair on people. I hate being let down. Especially by someone you think is a really, really, really good friend. And, you know, I've always said, guys, the measures of a good friendship is simple. You always know who a good friend is. A good friend is somebody that'll go that'll walk through the fires of hell for you. They'll pull you out the shit when you fall in. They'll help you, you know, unquestionably. You know, and you only ever come across a couple of people like that in your life. You might make hundreds of thousands of friends, but there's only one or two of them that are going to be true friends. I mean, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I've only really had a handful of true friends. There's my mate Mick, the scrap man, Tyrone. Tyrone, I knew Tyrone forever. I knew him for 40 odd years. You know, I knew Tyrone for many, many years. I got to know him in 1978, and we was friends all the way until he passed a couple of years ago. You know, and another mate of mine who's no longer with us, a lad called Steve Latham, he's gone. He was another friend. You know, and probably one or two more. I can't think offhand, but yeah. You know, at the end of the day, guys and girls, you know, you might meet loads of people throughout your life. You meet thousands. Some of them become friends, and some of them become more than friends. You know, they become a part of you. You know, they become a part of you. You know, you'll do anything for them, and they'll do anything for you, and. You know, but they'll do it and they won't ask question or payment. It's like my mate Steve Latham. He took me to pick up a jukebox, some jukebox parts. I got some jukebox parts given off a guy called Mick. I called him Chocolate Mick because he worked for Mars. He worked at, he was a Maltese fella, I think. But I called him Chocolate Mick because he worked for Mars. And he sent me a load of Mars products through the post. And I says to my mate Steve, I says to him, I says, any chance you can give me a lift over one day over the weekend? He said, why, where you going? I said, pick some jukebox bits up. He said, where is it? I said, Reading. So he said, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. So I said, oh, nice one. Anyway, so he went for a piss. Or he either went for a piss or a crap, one or two, and he come back. And he sat down, picked his cup of coffee up and his fags, have a smoke, and he says to me, he says, oh no, he'd given up. No, had he given up smoking? Yeah, I think no, he hadn't. Picked up his fags. He picked up his fags, his coffee and his fags, and he got a fag out. He was the only one I allowed to smoke in here. No one else was allowed to smoke. I used to let Steve. Anyway, he lit his fag up and we're talking. And he had his coffee and his cigarette, and he says, right, he said, I'll see you. He said, hang on a minute. He said, did you say Reading or did you say Reddish? I said, no, I said Reddish. Reading. Oh no, he says, I can't do Reading tomorrow. He said, I'll tell you what though, he said, I'll do it Saturday. So I said, nice one. He says, he said, make sure you're up and you're dressed and you've had your breakfast and your brew. He said, because I'm going to come up, I'm going to come up, either knock on your door or blow me horn. I said, knock on my door. I said, don't blow your horn at that time of the morning. He says, I want you straight out, we're in the car and we're gone. I said, how much do you want? He said, well, it'd be about 60 quid for the fuel. He said, just give me 60 quid. He says, I'll put that in the tank on the way there. And he did, he put every penny in the tank. And we drove down. He had a little Fiat Punto. We drove down. We had some tea and toast at Mick's. Met his wife and one, and he was showing me his jukebox. And we was having a good chat. And we loaded the car up with the bits, and we come back, and Steve says to me, he said, I've got to get off. I said, you having a brew? No, he says, I don't. He said, I've got to go and pick my girlfriend up. He says, he'd just got a girlfriend, which later became his third wife. He said, I've got to go and pick Emma up. He says, I'm taking her out for a meal. And he made nothing out of what, he'd run me down there and run me back. And he got nothing out of it for himself because it all went in his tank. And I pulled my wallet out and pulled 20 quid out. Says, yeah, I says, have a bit of your meal on me. No. He says, I can't do that, he says. I said, yeah, you can. He said, no. He says, I'm not and I won't. He says, you're a good friend. He said, you do it for me. He said, besides, he said, if you can't run a friend down to Berkshire, down to Reddish for the day, he says, what can you do? I said, oh, okay, fair enough. I put it back in my wallet. But, he wouldn't take it. And, they're the kind of friends. But that being said, he could come and ask me for anything. I remember once he come up with his son, and they had this great big Hitachi widescreen telly in the boot of the car. Anyway, they both carried it in. They says, where should I put it? I said, put it on my coffee table. Anyway, I plugged it in and it didn't work. I took the back off. I said, where did you say you got this from? It was his son's telly. I said, where did you say you got this from, Anthony? He said, oh, it's mine. I said, well, don't you listen to it? He said, what do you mean? I said, there's no fucking speakers in it. Somebody's used this for spares. I said, where did you get it? He said, well, actually. And then Steve turned around. He said, well, actually, he says he found it in the storage area in the bottom of the flat. He says he lugged it up to his flat and found it didn't work. So we brought it here. I said, well, luckily, I've got a set of speakers with the right plug on that'll go straight into this. I said, they come out of something that got scrapped. I says, I can put them in this, they're a direct fit. So we found some screws and stuff, I fitted the speakers. And we laid it flat on its screen on a towel on the coffee table, because I had no room on the bench. So we laid it flat on its screen, I got the board out, and I spotted the problem immediately. There was a couple of dry joints on some regulators. Them Hitachis were known for doing that. So anyway, I soldered it up, I soldered it up. I put the back on. He says, you got to test it first. I says, there'll be no need. I said, because if it doesn't come on now, I said, there's very little I'm going to be able to do. I said, because I haven't got the service information. I says, and, you know, they were stopping making tellies, CRT tellies by this time. They were getting very few. They were starting to discontinue them. I said, I think it'll work. So I put the back on, I screwed it all up, put it back into its normal position on the table, plugged the aerial in, turned it on, and it come on. Perfect. You know, he said, what they owe you? I said, don't be daft. You know. I said, don't start talking like that in front of me. I said, I don't want to hear that kind of language. I said, what do I owe you? You owe me fuck all, mate. Anyway, but that's how it was. That's the sort of relationship we had. If he wanted something doing, I did it for him. If I wanted something doing, he did it for me. You know, and we were really, really good friends. I got to know him. I thought I'd got to know him on community service for being a bad boy when I was a bit younger, but it wasn't. I did meet him on there, but that weren't where I got to know him. He lived opposite another guy who I knew, and I'd sold this guy a television, and Steve happened to be in this fella's house. Hiya, Malcolm. Good evening, my friend. Anyway, and he said, you know, he said, are you any good with video recorders? I said, yeah, he had a Panasonic NV333. So I said, what is it? He says, it's a Panasonic top loader. I said, the NV333. He said, yeah. I said, yeah, I can fix that for you. So I went over and I said to Kenny, have you got a piece of sandpaper? He says, yeah. So I went over and I cleaned the idler and all the guides and roughed the idler up with the sandpaper. That's what I wanted the sandpaper for. Roughed the idlers up to just getting by, really. I said, it will need new idlers. I said, but it'll get you by for probably last for a few months. It lasted ages. He says, what they owe you? I didn't know him at the time. So I didn't know him that well at the time. So he said, what they owe you? I said, you owe me a tenner. He said, can I sort it next week? I said, of course you can. I went round the following week and his wife answered the door at the time. It weren't Emma, it was Debbie. It was Debbie. She answered the door. I said, is Steve in? She says, no. She says, he had to go to, he was on the dole at the time. She says, he had to go to the dole. He says, she says, our gyro hasn't come. So I says, oh, okay. I said, tell him I'll catch him later. She said, yeah, of course I will. So I went over to this lad, Kenny's, for a brew. As I was there, I thought I might as well pop over Kenny's. I went in and he says, did you get your money off Steve? I says, his gyro hasn't come in. Oh, he said, that's a likely story. I says, right. I said, I take people's word until I can prove otherwise. Anyway, and he come to my place at the night time. Kenny must have told him where I lived. He come to my place with a mate of his called John Entwistle, who became a mate of mine. Not the famous one out there. Anyway, and he says to me, he says, what did you say to Kenny? And I say, fuck all to Kenny, why? I says, Kenny asked me if I got weighed in and if you weighed me in, and I says, your gyro hadn't come. I said, and he turned round to me and said, that's a likely story. He said, did he? I said, fuck, he did, yeah. I said, anyway, do you want to come in? So anyway, he came in and sat on the sofa. I says to my girlfriend at the time, Leslie, I said, yeah, make him a cup of coffee or whatever it is they want. So I says to him, I says, I was never in any doubt that you wouldn't pay me. I says, your Debbie told me your gyro hadn't come. I said, I believed that your gyro hadn't come. I said, because why would you fall out with somebody for a tenner? You wouldn't. You wouldn't try and hide from somebody for 10 quid. Even in 1993. You just wouldn't. Well, I think it was 92, the end of 92 I got to know him. So you just wouldn't. Anyway, so basically, he says, yeah, he says, here's your tenner. He said, I've been walking around with my pocket all day waiting for you to come in. I said, well, I came this morning. I said, but your gyro ain't come. I said, so I thought, fuck it. I'll catch up with you. You know, that's it. That's the way I look at it. I'll catch up eventually, you know. He said, well, there's your tenner. He said, and thanks for doing the job for me. He said, wait till I get hold of that fucking Kenny. He said, the shit stirring fucker, he said. I said, I'm telling you, mate. I said, I never said that. I said, I never said that it was a likely story and all this lot. I says, I was happy to take your Debbie's word for it. I says, and, you know, I said, that's all there is to it, really. Wait till I get hold of him, he said. Gonna get a right bollocking when I get home, he said. Anyway, and that was how I got to know my friend Steve. He passed away. I think it was 2014 or 2015, one of the two. Yeah, sadly missed, guys. But yeah, we actually bumped into each other again on community service. That's when we really became good friends. What that was back in the day, guys. If you got what they now call unpaid work, it was called community service, because you were doing service in the community. Like, you'd get in a van with a community service officer, supervisor, and what you do, you go to maybe some old dear's house. You know, nowadays they have them walking around doing meaningless things like picking up litter, fag ends and fucking shit like that. But back in the day, they used to have you doing something productive, like going around old dears' houses and decorating them, and, you know, or maybe do their garden or something. Anyway, we went to this house to decorate it, and we caught these two. We caught this fucking smackhead. We caught this smackhead going through this fucking old days fucking bedroom drawers. So we fucking grabbed him. We grabbed him and we battered him. We battered him all over the fucking bedroom, and battered him on his way down the fucking stairs. The thieving bastard. And we called Gary, the supervisor, and Gary come over. He said, "What's the problem?" I said, "We've just seen him caught him going through the old lady's drawers in her bedroom." So anyway, Gary searched him. He had now on him. We got him before he could take anything. And Gary says to him, he says, "Right," he says, "get in the van." He said, "You've been breached on your order. Get in the van." He said, "Well, what about them two?" He said, I've not seen them yet. Get in the van." And he locked him in the van. The van had deadlocks on it. So he fucking deadlocked him in the van so he couldn't get out. And, you know, fucking, when we got back, he says, "Right, he said, you'll be, don't turn up next week." He said, "You'll be notified that you've got to go to court in breach of your order." And the old dear actually thanked me and Steve. She says, "Thanks, lads." You know, I mean, it could have been my own mother, because I did speak to my mum back then. It could be I think my dad had only just died, or was about to. And, you know, I used to speak to my mum back then. But it could have been my mother, it could have been any one of your mothers. You know, it was somebody's mother, wasn't it, guys? It was somebody's mother or grandmother. And this parasite was fucking going through her drawers to steal from her. I mean, yeah. So, you know, it weren't happening. So we beat the twat up and kicked him down the fucking stairs. And, you know, fucking, and the old lady thanked us. You know, she even offered us a reward and we turned it down. We didn't want anything off her. We were there to be punished. We'd, you know, sort of, I wouldn't say broken, but more fractured the laws, you know. I can't remember what he was done for. I can't remember what I was there for now either. But I got breached on my community service order once. Because we was painting the bottom of St Luke's Church in Wythenshawe, painting the cellar. And the gas man came down. He says, "Anyone seen the vicar?" I said, "Try behind the altar." I said, "That's where you generally find vicars." And this fucking community service supervisor, she was a big fat fucker. I mean, she was a fucking big unit, guys. Honestly, I swear not. Honestly, I shit you not, guys. She was a big unit. Anyway, she says to me, she says, "You're breached." I says, "What?" She says, "You're breached." I said, "For what?" She says, "For talking to that gas man like that." I says, "He only asked where the fucking vicar was." I told him. I said, "Shut your fucking mouth, you lardy ass fat fucker." Anyway, I went to court over it. And I explained it to the judge. Well, to the magistrate. I explained it to the magistrate. I said, the guy came down into the cellar where we was painting. I says, he asked if anyone had seen the vicar. And I said, "Yeah, it might be behind the altar." I said, "That's where you generally find a vicar." You know, it turned out the vicar was probably in the vicarage, which was next door to the church. But I said he'd probably be behind the altar just having a bit of a laugh with the gas man. And he says, "Is that it?" I said, "Yeah." He said, didn't you call her a lardy-arsed fat fucker?" I says, I did, your worship." I said, "But I only called her a lardy-arsed fat fucker after she breached me." I said, "She'd already breached me." I said, "So you can't count that. Because she'd already told me that I was in breach of my order for what I said to the gas man." I thought, fucking hell. You know. Anyway, the magistrate turned round. He said, "Okay." He said, "She's not here." He said, "She hasn't turned up." He said, "She's not here to give evidence." He says, "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt." He says, "All I'm going to do is ask you to keep your mouth shut and get your order done." He says, "It's not too much to ask, is it?" I said, "No, it ain't, your worship." I said, "But it really wasn't my fault." You know, I said, "I've not had a problem with any of the other community service supervisors, not had a problem with any of them." He said, "No," he said, "you've got a clean record apart from that." He says, "And you're near the end of your order." I says, "I know." Anyway, he says, "Right, we'll get your order finished." He says, you know, he says, "I don't want to see you here again." I went, "Don't worry, you won't do." Anyway, and I finished my order. But, yeah, she breached me because I just said, "We should, you know, where's the gas man?" And I said, "Well, behind the altar." Sorry, "Where's the vicar?" "Behind the altar." And, you know, that's where you generally find vicars. You know, you go to church on a Sunday morning, where's the vicar? He's behind the altar, isn't he? You know, dressed in his robes and his dog collar. You know, yeah. You know, wearing his Jesus robes and his dog collar and all the rest of his regalia, preaching to everybody. You know, but at the end of the day, guys, you know, at the end of the day, it was people. To be honest with you, community service. It was a good idea. It was one of the best ideas that the government have ever had for dealing with criminals that that are not really criminals. They're just a victim of circumstance most of the time. You know, like they might be skint, so they'll go in a shop and pinch a bit of food, or stuff like that kind of thing. You know, or they might get picked up for carrying a bit of fucking hashish, a bit of marijuana. Back then, you never got warnings. They done you. You know, back then they done you. They did you. No excuses, nothing. They done you. You know, nowadays they give you one warning. If you get a warning, then you get a written warning off the superintendent, the station superintendent, and then you get done for it after that. But back then there was none of that. It was, my mate got 3 months. He had a £5 deal on him. They pulled him up. They searched him. He had a £5 deal of fucking. I think it was. What was it he had on him? It was fucking classed as Class B now. What was it? Weren't that fucking shit they smoke these days? It was fucking resin. It was. I think it was black or Moroccan black. I think it was. And I think it was Moroccan black or something. And they done him. He had a £5 wrap of that on him, and they done him, and he got 3 months. This particular guy. I mean, the guy's dead now. He'd been gone a while, I believe. But he was a friend of mine, and he got 3 months. You know, first time he'd ever been stopped. With fucking, they found anything on him. You know. I mean, they raided him once because somebody said that that he was growing it, and he wasn't. Somebody said that he was growing it, so they busted him. And this copper, he had a plant. I remember my mate telling me, he said, I had this plant on the windowsill. He said it was a cannabis plant. He said just had it on the windowsill. He said it was only a little small thing. He said you wouldn't have got fuck all off it. You know, he said you wouldn't have gone fuck all off it. He said this copper picked this fucking plant up, this potted plant up, and says, what's this? So John turned around, he says, I don't know. He says, I just looked, I bought it out of Tesco. He says, I was in there doing a bit of shopping. I seen it and I liked it, so I bought it and put it there. And the copper didn't even know what it fucking was. He didn't have a clue what it was. They even unscrewed the speakers on his music centre and had a look in the back of them. He said, what do you expect to find in there? You know. But yeah, the first time he ever got caught and he got done, he got 3 months. I mean, that's how ruthless it was. Nowadays, you get 1 or 2 warnings, and then when you go to court, you only get a conditional discharge, or you get a bit of a fine, or a bit of unpaid work, or something. But that, getting back to community service, guys, community service was a good idea. It's probably one of the best ideas that the government had for dealing with, criminals that are more of a victim of circumstance than they are a criminal. Where it went wrong was when they started putting smackheads on it. Drug addicts. That's when it went wrong. They started putting skagheads on it, and they were stealing from the old people that they were supposed to be helping. And me and Steve caught one. Like I said, fucking leathered the cunt. And and we become good friends after that, me and Steve. We was on the CB and we was talking about it on the CB. Because he come round to mine, I don't think he'd seen a CB until this point. He says, what's that? I says, it's a CB. He said, all right. And he says to me, he says, where can I get one? I said, well, I said, I've got nothing at the moment. I says, but the best bet is probably Stockport CB Centre. So he went to Stockport CB Centre and bought a Rotel 220. He bought a Rotel 220, an aerial, and we come back and put it all up for him. We got it all up and got him on the air, and we used to sit there chatting. But yeah, we had some fun, guys. We had some fun. It was a laugh. But yeah, them days are gone now. We were both young then. He's no longer with us. I'm an old man, and yeah, but I've got a lot of good memories. Like I'm always saying, guys, if I go tomorrow or if I go right now, I've got no regrets. I've had a good time. I've had a few bad times, but like the other week when I lost my poor little dog, that was a bad time. In fact, I mourned my dog more than I mourned my mother. Still think about the little fella now. And when I do it, I get a little tear to my eyes, and yeah, and that's obvious. I mean, I had my dog here. I had that little dog for 18 and a half years. I mean, he lived with me all his life, apart from the only part of his life he didn't live with me was for the first 8 weeks of it. Because he can't leave the mother for 8 weeks. So, it was under the first 8 weeks he didn't live with me after that. But because I picked him out, every time I went to see Charlie, I used to give him a fuss and get him used to me. And I used to get him used to being around me and whatnot. And, every time he got to the point where every time he heard me, he used to come to the safety gate that they had to stop him running off. He used to come to the gate and jump up, and I couldn't go past him without putting my hand in and picking him up and giving him a bit of a fuss. bit of a fuss and a cuddle, like, you know. So he got to know me very well before he even came to live here. And he was my best friend. I mean, he really was. He was my best friend. I mean, you know, because I knew he would never turn on me. You know, he would never bite me on the ass. You know, he'd never turn on me. Never go behind my back. Never bite me on the ass. Never do anything that humans do. You know, I mean, I had a few human friends that would never do that either. But, you know, most people these days, guys, are out for themselves, aren't they? A lot of them. Not everybody. There is still a lot of good people. And I know a lot of those good people. But, you know, most of the mentality mostly today is you scratch my back and I'll stick a knife in yours, you know. And that's not right, is it, guys? Come on. You know, I'll help anybody, me, as you all know. I get emails off people, I've got this wrong, I've got that wrong, what do I do for this and what? And if I can help them, I'll help them, of course I will. You know, because that's what we're here for. You know, and at the end of the day, that's what I enjoy doing. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Oh, pardon me. I'm going to leave it there, guys. And... blimey. I'm going to leave it there, guys. And thank you for coming in. It's... how many have we had in? 8 people. No worries. Anyway, guys, don't forget to join me tomorrow. We're back on the karaoke. So if it's a lousy day, you know why. You all take it easy, guys. It's always a pleasure coming on and having a chat. I enjoy these nights when we come on and we just have a chat. You know, I don't like it when I come on and nobody comes in. I feel like I've been talking to myself all night, but, you know, but when we get a few people in, like we've got a few people in now, it's only 3 people. That's better than nothing. You know what I always say, guys? You know I always say, you know, a small rabbit is better than no rabbit at all. Anyway, you all take it easy. You all look after yourselves. You enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. It's 26 minutes past 7. You all take it easy, guys. Look after yourself. You all stay safe and warm. And like, share, subscribe. If you want to buy me a coffee, please feel free to do so. You all take care, and I'll be back tomorrow. There might be another video. We're doing this little radio in a bit. We'll see how late it gets. I'll catch you later, guys. Bye for now. As we don't fall asleep.